Benissimo. Io credo che abbiamo cercato in questa ora di forse di far emergere qualche altro elemento che potesse arricchire due giornate già estremamente ricche. Se qualcuno dal pubblico volesse porre qualche domanda, volentieri. Yes, Jeff.
In italiano Rosella, together with Kim Brand, I have a question which came into mind. As you remember, you curated an exhibit of modern textiles, Philadelphia, and also at the Chirac Museum from my collection. Has nothing to do with Mingei, and they were all kimono, from the most part from the 50s and the 60s, which when I was going in the late 70s and the 80s to Japan, and I saw these fantastic colored cloths and kimonos that I knew nothing about, which I found everywhere. And they were not inciting upon the cost of my Mingei, which was not inexpensive even at that time. So I would pack them into the suitcase, and with each trip, and I would go. Anyway, to make a long story short, I was told that at that time, now I'm speaking at the Philadelphia, when did we have, at the Chirac Museum, when did we have the...
2006.
2006, all right. So a few years had passed. And at the time I was pulling these things together, I didn't know what I was doing. And I put them in the closet, and when Annie Van Asche, who wrote for a book that I had at that time, which was an exhibit at the Duke's Palace in Genoa, she came to the house and I said, "What do you think of these?" I opened the closet door and all of these kimonos were broken out. And she said, "Oh my goodness, these are what I studied at Honolulu University." She said, "How did you get these? They're very common." I said, "Yes, because the young women didn't wear what their grandmothers gave them, and they didn't want what their mothers had because it was out of style." So what's interesting for me to know at this point, because at a certain moment, they all sort of got picked up again later, years after these two exhibits of these 20th century kimono, which the Philadelphia, I don't know if you saw that, but they did a Nazi Pavilion also, which you did at the Chirac Museum, right? Okay, so with what you said before about the kimono, what is this period where they were so available and suddenly gone again? And now, of course, there will be a, thank you, grazie. And now, of course, there will be an exhibit coming up next spring at the Victoria and Albert with these. So, does it make sense what I'm asking? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Because there seems to be a gap there in years.
The exhibition at the Jacques Chirac Museum was titled Art Deco, no? Art Nouveau and Art Deco kimonos. And so it showed this beautiful selection of kimonos, women kimono, children kimono, and haori too, with this modern kind of design, mainly of the 30s, and yes, something of the 50s too, but it was mainly, yes, 30s, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but so we showed the modernization of the pattern and the way of dressing kimono and using kimono, which I think shows what Professor Brand was saying about this kind of new interest in kimono dressing with this publication, these magazines, also in the 50s. I don't know if there is a gap in what But I feel that at a certain point, from the certain and with the changing of everyday lifestyle, with the westernization of space in the home, and with the introduction of machines and technologies, also the kimono were changed, both in the motifs influenced by Western motifs, but also in the use of kimono. And maybe today we are watching at another sort of revival of the kimono. Today we see young girls which are willing to show grandmother and mother kimonos at a time, but we also see a second-hand market of kimonos that point to the foreign visitors to Japan. And I think we are now in a period where kimono is not dying, but it's near to be left, because yes, we have this revival in kimono and also the yukata, but it's for a foreign public, so it's a sort of nostalgic way of using it, but it's not part of everyday life. More we have a use in the ceremonies, in particular occasions from the Japanese part, but we have a crescent interest in the foreigner visiting Japan and buying kimono and using kimono in another way, which is a sort of new Japanism. So yes, it's a very wide and very general input that I give, but I think that we are in this kind of situation now, which is linked also to the new Mingei interest. I don't know if in the 50s you can say something about this kind of new conception of...
Well, I think I agree that in a sense, the kimono as a living part of the Japanese wardrobe did kind of die. It sounds terrible to say it so bluntly, but I think it's not really a part of people's daily life. And I think the 1950s were really a key transitional moment where that process was definitely happening, but there was a kind of, a little bit of a counter resurgence, which was in a way perhaps a kind of death throw. But at the same time, it wasn't a death throw, because I think one of the things, and this gets to the question that Gianna asked at the very beginning. You said you were going to ask us, all of us, what we thought Mingei meant. And to me, as a historian, Mingei is a very particular and historical phenomenon. I don't tend to think of it so much as an eternal, unchanging sort of essence. I think of it as something that emerged at a very particular moment in the modernization of Japan and was incredibly important as one of many factors that helped to create modern Japanese national identity. And to the extent that it remains a key part of Japanese national identity, it's not going away. And I think that is the life that, for example, kimono still has. But it's not necessarily as you know, a part of the everyday in the way that we think of for before 1945, for example. So that's just my perspective as a historian.
Maybe I had only one thing about the kimonos of Jeffrey collection that were shown in the Jacques Chirac Museum showed also the that period of Japan, because a lot of kimonos and obi too had scenes of the wars, so they were also a kind of painting showing some important part of that changing, not only with decorative motifs, but also with some motifs which regarded the wars, propaganda, and so it was interesting also from a point of view of an historical way of accounting that period of Japan. So it's not only a dress, but something more.
It's a support for it's a surface where
yes,
where we project
an identity product.
Where we project identity, values.
So also the use changes depending on the period.
Yeah. This is getting more and more interesting actually, but I think time is running. Would anyone? Yes, yes. Oh yes. Because you have.
すみません、トランスレートしています。日本、今大学でも授業をしていますが、学生に聞くと、着物というのは私たちにとっても、皆さんにとっても多分日本の民族衣装という捉え方があると思うんです。ですが、若い学生たちは、民族衣装という捉え方はしていない、今やしていないんです。で、どういう時にさっき言ったかというと、成人式だったり、卒業式だったり、その時にじゃあコスプレっていうのが通じます。はい、そのコスプレの衣装として着るということの方が大きいんじゃないかな。で、もうちょっとだんだん年を取ってくるのはもしかしたら民族衣装でもやっぱりもう民族衣装っていう概念は多分今の若い人たちじゃないかなというのが現状です。
I know it appears to be the foregoing discussion on the use of the kimono in the 30s and 50s and so forth. It's traditional for us to think of the kimono as the traditional clothing of Japan. But Pasiyanagi, after asking his students, he gets the impression that the students do not think of this as a traditional clothing of Japan. They think of it rather as something akin to cosplay, where it's a sort of a costume that one wears at certain occasions, such as looking for a job or whatever it is, New Year's, and it's not something that is traditionally part of their own national identity.